super excited to have our special guest on to share her purpose journey and story with us all. Thank you so much for joining us, Kathy. And I'm so excited to celebrate who you are and your purpose and to hear it unfolded with our audience. So, first of all, where are you from, Kathy?
Well, thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate being able to speak with you. I am originally from New Jersey. I currently live in Ohio, though.
Awesome. All right. And just like all our other episodes, you're going to get to learn about Kathy and who she is today through her story. So let's go back to the moment or the day, and it may be several aha moments or several steps that evolved to lead you to where you are today. So please take us to the beginning of the journey. And I'm so excited to hear it. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, I would say that I had two distinct aha moments in life that kind of put me on my journey. Uh, the first one I would say happened when I was 21 years old. I was what I refer to myself now as young and stupid, and I followed a guy all the way to Alaska, and we lived in Alaska for 2.5 years. And while I was there, I came down with something called rheumatic fever, which you don't hear a lot about anymore. It's something that has pretty much been eradicated, which is a great thing. But I came down with it, and at the time, they said only 1% of people who get this disease get it over adolescent years. So I had fallen in that 1%, and that always stuck out to me that I was a 1%er. And it got so bad at one point that the doctors were telling me on a daily basis, I was basically on outpatient status, but in the hospital for 3 months. And they would tell me every day that there was nothing else they could do to help me, that I was going to die. I had about 3 months they thought to live, get your affairs in order. And at 21 years old, like, what are your affairs? And so it was interesting because I was kind of going back and forth between this. I'm in the 1%, and I don't know what that means, but it feels like a little bit special in a way, although that sounds kind of weird when you're talking about a disease. But then on the other hand, I have them telling me that I'm going to lose my life. And so I just kind of purposed in my heart at that moment that I wasn't finished, I wasn't done, and there was still something greater for me to do in life. And that was what I needed to pursue. And so I just decided I'm not going to die. I'm just not. And all these years later, here I am. But during that time, because of this disease, it did leave some residual effects. The disease itself basically happens when strep throat goes untreated and then gets into your heart and your joints and all of this. So during that time, I couldn't walk for 7 months, and I lost a lot of range of motion in some of my joints, still to this day. So it it was one of those things where I had strep many, many times, and I know what strep feels like. I never knew I had it this one time. And so moving forward from that, I felt like now, because I'm, young, 21 years old, and, at the prime of life, and here I have these residual effects. Like, even to this day, I can't straighten my elbows all the way. My right ankle doesn't rotate all the way around. And that progresses into like rheumatoid arthritis and that. And so now it's affecting my neck. I have very limited range of motion in my neck. And so I found that I was feeling very less than at that time.
Mhm.
Even though I beat this disease, I still felt like I wasn't good enough because now I felt physically broken. And so that kind of was one of the factors that led me into a string of abusive relationships, one being with the guy that I followed to Alaska. Um, and it was different kinds of abuse throughout this series of relationships. Uh, and there was physical abuse in there. There was even spiritual abuse in there. There was emotional and narcissistic abuse in there. And the one thread that ran throughout this entire story, my entire life, was my high school sweetheart. And we met when we were 14. We dated for a little less than a year at that time. We lost touch after graduation. Then I was with this other guy. And then after that ended, we reconnected in our 20s. and we were together for 2.5 years. And then he kind of broke up with me out of nowhere. And then 11 months later ended up getting married. So I thought, okay, this ship has sailed, even though he was my person. He was the one. And so I ended up marrying someone else. And then 10 years down the line, I received this letter from him saying that he was so sorry for the way things ended. He loved me. He'd always loved me. He always would love me. And that he didn't want to mess up anything that I might have going on, but he really wanted to know that I was okay. So could I please just email him and let him know I was okay? And mentioned in that letter that he was in the process of a divorce. I was already in the process of a divorce at that time as well. So I thought, well, what do I have to lose? Like, this is my person. And so we started communicating, and things progressed, and we did end up getting married. And this was, I can honestly say, one of the worst decisions of my life. Even though the first 3 years of our marriage were fantastic, we went on vacations a lot. We lived in a beautiful home. We were in one of the most affluent cities in New Jersey with like the best school system. And we were looking forward to having kids and all of this. It was the perfect American dream for the first 3 years until it wasn't. And then he just started withdrawing. He would come home and either stay in the garage or go up and be on the computer all night and wouldn't talk to me. And we stopped doing even little simple things. That we used to joke that Friday night was date night, and that when we did our grocery shopping. And so we stopped doing that together, and it just progressed from there. And it just got worse and worse. And I tried to address it, and nothing happened. And then he started with the what I now know to be narcissistic abuse started coming out and being really prevalent. And so 4 years later, I come to find out that he had been cheating that whole time. So basically, when he started this relationship with this girl, he basically put me aside in every sense of the word. And maybe that was a good thing. Looking back, I don't know. I try not to look back on it too much, but yeah, he had been seeing this girl. She did not know he was married. When she found out, she contacted me. She was able to find me on social media and contacted me. And of course, he denied it. He told me that she was crazy and unstable, while he was telling her I was crazy and unstable, and all these
Mm.
things, and went immediately into victim mode. And I'm leaving out a lot of the details as far as the narcissistic abuse itself, but I think that most people know what that means these days. So fast forward from that, we were in the middle of all of this happening, and maybe about 2 weeks after I found out, I was in my office at home, and I was just sobbing, and I found myself in a puddle on the floor, just sobbing. And he came to the doorway of my office and stood over me, and he was like, "What are you crying about?" And I said, "What am I crying about?" He's like, "Are you still crying about this? Like, clean yourself up and pick yourself up off the floor." And I was like, I was blown away by this. And it was just like a good story. It was a dark and stormy night. And I was like, I'm leaving. I'm out. I'm going somewhere. I don't know where. And he was like, it's terrible weather. I'm not letting you drive. You're not going anywhere. But for God's sake, get yourself up off the floor. And he walked away. And it was in that moment that I had the second aha moment in life. I had always known that I had a bigger purpose. I didn't know what it was. And here we are in this moment, and I I felt such rage and such
Mm.
betrayal in that moment. And I just found myself asking myself, like, who are you? Who are you really? And I knew that I was at a crossroads, and I could sit myself in a corner and sob my eyes out and hate the world. And I knew that a lot of people would say I was justified for that with everything I'd been through. But I knew that wasn't the answer. I knew that I could use these experiences to make me bitter, or I could use them to make me better. And I chose to use them to make me better, because the alternative doesn't hurt him. It hurts no one but me to be bitter for all of my life. So that was what I chose. And I, in that time period, was over at the home of a trusted mentor, and I was sitting at her kitchen table sobbing. And she said something to me that I will never, ever, ever forget. She said, "I'm about to tell you something and you're not going to like it." And she said, "But it's not for now. You need to tuck it away, bring it back out when you're ready to wrestle with it, and then share what you learn with the world." And I thought to myself, what on earth is she about to say? And she said to me, "You've now been in several abusive relationships and you're the common denominator. And you need to figure out why." And of course, my first reaction was, like, how could you say that? But I trusted her so much. I knew that she would never say anything to hurt me, only to help me. And so I did tuck that away. I took her advice. I tucked that away. It took me a good year or two to bring that back out, but I did eventually during my healing process. And I just thought, okay, I need to look at this because there's truth in it. And it's a hard truth, but it's truth nonetheless. And after I dug into that and grappled with it, I realized that I never in my life, and maybe going back to the rheumatic fever and now feeling broken or less than or whatever, I never loved or valued myself enough to put any kinds of standards or boundaries in place for myself. And of course, hindsight is 2020, and I can look back on all of these string of relationships and see the red flags that happened before we were even in a relationship. But during that time, I ignored them or didn't see them or whatever because I was feeling, I don't know, like this is somebody who's paying attention to me and I'm broken, and so I'll just go with this kind of thing. So that was really kind of the way everything happened, and I knew in that moment, in a puddle on the floor, that my purpose was to help other women who are going through some kind of abusive relationship or recently out, because that healing process was hard, especially in the beginning. During that time, I also put myself through a health coach training program because I needed something to take my mind off of things. And I knew that I needed to heal, but I didn't really fully have my mind wrapped around what that meant or looked like. But I knew it wasn't just, I need to get over this or I need to heal emotionally. I knew there was more to it and I needed to figure that out. So I went and got certified as a health coach. And then I kind of married these two things together, the health and wellness and the abuse piece. And now that is what I'm doing. I focus primarily on women who have been in abusive relationships. I'm currently working on a digital course to help heal holistically after abuse. And I also host a podcast called Tragically Beautiful, where I have abuse survivors come on and share their stories. But we, instead of focusing on the tragedy, we focus on the beautiful. And what have you learned or created or become that's beautiful, either as a result of or in spite of the abuse that you endured?
Wow, that is so beautiful. First, thank you so much for being vulnerable and opening up, because just right there, that's an inspiration. By you being vulnerable, so many women out there can see themselves in their own situation and reflect and see, wow, if she got out and she's now holistic and whole, then I can do it too. So thank you so much for having that courage to share your story so openly and
Absolutely.
and yeah, it's such a common occurrence, unfortunately, going through all these relationships, and it's just so beautiful what you've created out of it. Created, like a healing and a place for women to come and heal. So what would you say is, because I know there's a lot of information on there on like how to find out you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship. What would you say are the keys? And I think I heard you say, just to know your own worth. So what advice would you give to women who are seeing that they're in a string of relationships that are not working? What is that piece of advice?
I the biggest piece of advice is definitely learn to love yourself. There's nobody in the world that there's no more important relationship that you have than the one with yourself. And no matter what your world looks like me, I still feel, I'm 51 now, and this rheumatic fever was 30 years ago, and I still have these effects of it. So I still feel weird and broken sometimes, but it's like I know that I know that I know that I had a purpose, that there was a reason that I did not lose my life 30 years ago. And so I had to learn to say, um, this may sound funny, but I have a little sticky note right in front of me that I look at every day, and it says, "You're a pretty big deal. Now start acting like it." And I don't mean that in a conceited way, but it's like it's just to remind me that I have purpose and I can love myself no matter what I look like, what I am experiencing. Everybody has their own things, so just to learn to love those things that are different about yourself and to love yourself fully and wholly.
Thank you so much. That is such good and holistic advice. So thank you so much. What is what would you say is the biggest thing that you're looking forward to uncovering? Because our purpose is an ongoing journey. So what are some of the aspirations or the bigger goals that you have in sight and in mind?
Yeah. Like I said, I have this course coming out, which I'm super excited about. I've put so much time and effort into it, and I feel like I've not seen anything else out there like it. So I feel like this is really going to help a lot of people. But my mind is already kind of down the line, like what's next, what's next. And I definitely want to build a community of women that can just support each other and love on each other and remind each other on a daily basis that you are worth it, that you are enough, and you can do this too. I've also recently met someone who is also kind of in the same space, but she deals more with women who are in the thick of it now. And she's wanting to start a nonprofit, and I'm going to come alongside of her and help her with that. And so those are kind of the big goals right now. There's many more, but we'll see where life takes me.
Awesome. Well, I just want to celebrate you. Thank you for sharing your story and for creating this course, which is definitely going to impact many, many women, and for, collaborating with other women, like you're saying, to build this community. I'm celebrating that in advance because that's how things manifest. So I just want to celebrate you and thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for being one of our 100 purpose leaders today. So, what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
I can be found on Instagram at Coach Kathy Wisniewski. I know it's hard to spell, but you can find me there. My uh, podcast also has an Instagram, which is at Tragically Beautiful Podcast. And yeah, those are probably the best ways to find me. I hang out on Instagram the most.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And if you feel inspired, please connect with Kathy. And thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Have a beautiful day. And thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kathy.
Thank you.